All right, so we're going to solve quadratics. Now remember I told you that a quadratic is an equation where the highest exponent is a square. And from Algebra 1, we learned that the graph of a quadratic makes a parabola. We're going to talk about parabolas probably next week. So we're going to graph these babies after we do all of the algebra stuff for the section. So when we solve these, they're going to have an equal sign in them, okay? So that's how we know the difference in if we just factor it and when we solve it, it's solving will have an equal sign. And we also need them to be set equal to 0, okay? These are 4 terms that could be talking about the same thing for quadratic equations. If you hear them say find the solutions, find the roots, find the zeros, or find the x-intercepts, it's all asking for the same thing. Okay? They call them the zeros and the x-intercepts because the solutions to a quadratic are also your x-intercepts for your parabola, where your graph crosses the x-axis. So that's why there's a bunch of multiple names for them. And also roots, because sometimes you can solve them using square roots, which we will talk about later on in Chapter 4. So, to solve it, we're solving by factoring. So all of our steps to factoring that we learned yesterday, they're going to apply today, okay? So to solve this one, I'm going to factor the polynomial x squared minus 5x minus 36 equals 0. So cover up that equals 0, and let's pretend it's just a factoring problem just like yesterday. How many terms does it? First of all, the GCF is 1. Let's note that because that's step 1. Then it's got 3 terms, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So 3 terms, we make a what?
A chart.
A table. Chart, table, same thing. So on this one, we want 2 numbers that will multiply to get what number?
36 and add to get -5.
Is this going to be a short way or a long way?
Long way. I mean short way.
How do you know?
Because you ain't got to do all the extras.
Right, there's not a number besides 1 in front of x squared. So therefore, it's only a short way. So we're going to add to get -5. Nope, that's supposed to be -36. I'm sorry. Thank you. I mean, it's copy. So multiplies to get a negative, so we need a negative and a positive, and the bigger one will be a what? Negative. All right, so -9 and +4. You sure? The bigger one needs to be negative. So -4, +9, right? You're right. Sorry. You're right. Does that multiply to get -36? Does it add to get -5?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So when we do the short way, remember we can go straight to our factors, right? So what are our 2 factors?
X minus 9
And?
X plus 4.
All right. Now we got this equals 0 stuff we got to drag down. So yesterday, after we factored it, that would be our answer. But since we're solving it, and we got to equal 0, what you're going to do now is you're going to set each factor equal to 0. So you're going to say x minus 9 equals 0. And you're going to say x plus 4 equals 0. And then you're going to solve them both.
Add 9 to both sides. X equals 9. X equals 4. I'm -4.
Yeah, and then you subtract 4, and x equals -4. So we have 2 solutions. And if this was a parabola, which it is a graph of parabola, that would be where I'd be crossing my x-axis at both of those numbers.
I got to do what we did yesterday.
And then set them equal to 0. Yes. So that's what you do. You get your factors, and then you set all factors equal to 0 to solve it. Okay? So if we can factor, the rest of it's really no big deal. Here's another similar one. How many terms do we have?
3.
3. So make a table. This time I need 2 numbers that multiply to get
-42. Add to get 1.
-1.
-1.
Right? and a negative and a positive, and this time the bigger one's negative because it adds to get a negative 1. What do we need? What multiplies to get 42?
Negative 142.
Yeah, there's one of them. Bigger one needs to be negative. Negative 7, positive 6. Does that add to get negative 42 and add to get negative 1? Sure does. So this was a short way again because the leading term is a 1. So we have x minus 7 times x plus 6. And then we have equals 0. So what do we have to do since we have equals 0? Set them both equal to 0. Very good. Yep, so x equals positive 7.
It really just turned to the line.
Yeah, if you have it like this, where there's nothing in front of x and you just have to subtract it, it's going to be the opposite signs. It's going to be opposite signs. Okay. These are slightly simpler. Slightly. How many terms does number 3 have?
2.
2. Before I factored, I first looked for the what?
The GCF.
GCF. So ignore the equals 0. We're just looking at m squared minus 7m. What's the GCF right there? M. 1m. You just put the m. Parentheses, what times m makes m squared? M. Minus what times m makes negative 7m?
7.
Minus 7. And now it won't factor anymore. So then you set all of your factors equal to 0, including the m over there. So the GCF gets equal to 0 also. And m equals 0 is already solved, isn't it? So that's one of our solutions. And then the second 7. Yeah. So this parabola will be crossing the x-axis at 0 and positive 7. Any questions about number 3? Number 4. How many terms are in front of the equal sign? 2, right? Do they have a GCF besides 1? They are difference of squares. Remember, if it's 2 terms and it doesn't have a GCF, check to see if it's a difference of squares. And it is, because I can take the square root of all of those terms. Well, what's this? Okay, make yourself 2 binomial parentheses. What is the square root of 4? What's the square root of x squared? What's the square root of 49? So I have 2 x's in the front, 7's in the back, and what goes in the middle of a difference of squares?
A minus and a positive.
Yeah, one gets a plus, one gets a minus. And since we're solving these, what do we have to do now?
Equal both of them to 0.
That's right. So 2x plus 7 equals 0, and 2x minus 7 equals 0. So on this one, I'm going to subtract 7 on both sides. And divide by 2. And you can leave that improper. Just simplify it. X equals negative 7 over 2. Don't get an improper fraction and let it freak you out, okay? It's okay. That's going to happen today. Okay? On the second one, I do the same thing, except I add 7. Divide by 2. And this time, x equals positive 7 over 2. So when you have a difference of squares, your solutions, you should have a pair of opposites. Opposite means one a positive, one a negative. Okay? Yes. Then we get to these lovely trinomials. We're going to have to factor these the long way, right? Any questions so far? Because I know I'm going kind of quickly today, but is everybody okay so far? All right. So these are going to be the ones where we have to do the trinomials the long way with factor by grouping and such. All right. So, like I said, it's got 3 terms, so we're going to make our table. I need 2 numbers on this first one that multiply to get what? First times last. Yeah, if there's a number right here in front of x squared, you got to multiply first times last. So what's 3 times negative 8?
Negative 24.
And then you add to get the middle. So remember, I need a negative and a positive to multiply to get a negative 24. And if it adds to be a positive 10, then that will be a positive. So y'all take a second and see if y'all can figure out. What'd you say? 12 and 2? Or 12? Yeah, 12 and 2. And the bigger one needs to be positive, right? So negative 2, positive 12. Now, I told you when I did my long way stuff yesterday that if I have a choice, if I have either or, I like the plus sign to go in the very middle.
It's 6 and 2. I mean, I'll give you 4 and 6.
4 and 6, I need a negative and a positive. So that won't work.
You negative.
Because they'll add to get negative 2, positive 2. That's why you got to be careful with your signs. So remember the long way. We copy the first term, 3x squared. And the 2 terms from our table change the middle term. So instead of plus 10x, I'm going to write negative 2x plus 12x. So make sure you give both middle terms an x. And the last term gets copied also.
And then equals 0.
Keep that equal 0 alive. You're just going to drag it all the way down the page. Or all the way down the problem anyway.
Then
4 terms. So I do factor by grouping with those 4. So if I have 3x squared minus 2x, what's the GCF?
x.
X. Very good. Parentheses. What times x is 3x squared? 3x. Minus what times x is 2x? 2. Plus, what's the GCF in the next group? 4. Yes. Parentheses. What times 4 is 12x? 3x. And what times 4 is negative 8?
Negative.
All right. And keep that equal 0. Sorry, my table kind of got it mixed in with it. Do I have the same thing in both parentheses?
Yes, ma'am.
So what are my 2 factors then?
3x minus 2 and x plus 4.
Very good. Oops. Plus. 3x minus 2. And remember, the second parentheses comes with everything not in parentheses squished together. So x plus 4.
Equals 0, right?
Yes. All right. Stop right here. Anybody have a question so far before I finish the rest of it? Because that's the hard part. Now we're at the easy part. Are we good so far?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now what do I do to finish it?
Set them both equal to 0.
Yeah.
Like you did up there.
So
Minus 2 equals 0 and x plus 4 equals 0.
okay. So on this one, I don't think I gave myself much room.
Add 2.
Add 2.
3x.
Divide by 3. And x equals 2/3, right? And this one over here, I just subtract 4. And x equals negative 4. My handwriting is crazy today. Y'all, those are the longest ones you'll have. Okay? They're the longest and most difficult ones we'll do.
It's the really just easy.
Yeah. Well, we get good at them by practicing, right? That's all we have to do is practice, and we should get better at them. Number 6 over here, same thing. Okay? It's got 3 terms. So we're going to make our table. We're going to do it the long way because there's a 4 there instead of a 1. Okay?
Negative 6 multiply negative 60.
So we want 2 numbers that multiply to get negative 60. That's from the 4 times negative 15.
Add to get negative 60.
Yep.
You're going to need negative
I need one of each, and the bigger one will be a negative, right? So, what you think? Well, negative 12 times 5 would add to be negative 7, not negative 17. But it's good that we tried it. We listed it, right? Negative 20, positive 3. Does that add to get negative 17? Oh, that's the one that's going to work. Good job. I'm going to separate my table over here. So I got 4x squared, and then in the middle, I'm going to put a minus 20x plus 3x minus 15 equals 0. Then we got grouping. Wait, GCF right here in this group is what? Not just x. There's a bigger one. 4x.
Okay, I got.
The largest number that goes into 4 and 20. So what times 4 is 4x squared? X minus what times 4x is 20x? 5. Plus, what's the GCF in the next group? 3. What times 3 is 3x? Minus what times 3 is 15? Okay. And what are my two factors then?
X minus 5.
And
4 plus 3.
4x plus 3.
4.
There we go. So any questions on that? We did the hard part. Now it's the easy part. Said each one equal to 0. So 4x minus 5 equals 0. And 4x plus 3 equals 0. So add 5. X equals 5. And then over here we subtract 3. 4x equals negative 3. Divide by 4. And x equals negative 3/4. Again, don't freak out over your fractions. You're going to have them. Just make sure they're simplified.
Woo.
That's the longest one. That's the longest one. We got 3 more to go. But they're not all long like this.
You want to get this star right there? Copy this star down.
There ain't no stars. This is just a new set of directions. All right, so the new set of directions says find the zeros of the function by rewriting the function in intercept form. So this is what some of your directions are going to say. Okay? So basically, instead of equals 0, it's going to be equal to a y or equal to a f of x, which is a function. Okay? So if it says y equals something or f of x equals something, you can change that variable into a 0. Okay? So whatever it uses to name the function, change it into a 0, then you're doing the same thing. If you don't like your 0 in the front, you want to put your 0 in the back, that's fine too. It's the same thing. Okay? So how do we factor 3x squared minus 27? First, we look for the what? Is there a GCF besides 1? 3. Mm-hmm. And what times 3 is 3x squared?
1.
X squared. Yep. Minus what times 3 is 27? 9. Am I done factoring? Why not? Yes, x squared minus 9 is the difference of squares. So remember that step 3 from yesterday. You need to make sure all of your factors are factored completely. Okay? So 0 equals 3. Keep the 3 there. Make yourself 2 parentheses. What's the square root of x squared? X. Put them in the front. What's the square root of 9?
3.
Put them in the back. And what goes in the middle of a difference of squares? Yes. Now, after you've done that and you have everything factored completely and you have it equal to 0, say all of your terms equal to 0. So, okay, even the 3, we're going to throw it out, but put it equal to 0 just in case. Because if it had an x there, you would have to solve it. So, does 0 equal 3, though? No, there's no x there, so we can't solve it. So, we'll really just throw it out.
Minus 3 on both sides.
X equals negative 3. And then x equals positive 3.
Yeah, I like yo right there straight.
We good? That wasn't bad, was it? So just remember, if you have a difference of squares, you got to factor it again. Look at this one. This one says f of x equals x squared plus 7x minus 18.
All you gotta do is equal to 0.
Yep, you can swap it, make it equal to 0. And then how many terms is there? 3, make a table. And is it going to be a short table or a long way table?
Short.
Short way, good. So I need two numbers that multiply to get what? And I need a negative and a positive, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
We're doing this right now. This is what we need to be doing. You can help him later. It's lesson time. Nothing else is more important than me teaching this lesson. That's why I'm here, not picking up my sick kid right now. All right, so the bigger one's going to be a what? Positive. So what do we need? 9 and negative 2. And we said this is short way, right? So what are my two binomials? Two factors.
X plus 9.
And
X minus
x minus 2.
2.
Yep, and then it's the easy stuff left. X plus 9 equals 0. X minus 2 equals 0. You're going to subtract 9, and x equals negative 9. And you're going to add 2, and x equals 2. So those little short trinomials, you're going to be glad when you get those, aren't you?
I feel like we can do a whole thing.
You can. We just got one more example. Are we getting it? Because we understand. I know I'm going really fast, but does everybody understand what's going on?
Yeah.
So did factoring by itself yesterday help? I think so. So this way we did 2 days of factoring. One more. How many terms?
3, but it's the long way.
But it's the long way. You're right. Okay. So, but first we got to set it equal to 0 instead, right? And it's, how do we know it's a long way?
So they got a constant in front of the.
Yeah, it's got a number besides 1 in front of the x squared, right, as the coefficient. It's called the leading coefficient if it's in front. Yep. Make a table. I need two numbers that multiply to get.
6.
Yep, first times last. And then add to get. Okay. Need a negative and a positive. And the bigger one is a negative. I'm going to let y'all think on that one for a second. Well, I know 6 times 11, and the bigger one has to be a negative. So that's 6 and negative 11. Is that going to add to get negative 19? No. So y'all throw me something else that multiplies. Negative 22 and positive 3. Does that add to get negative 19? She's a factoring fool back there. She's good. Does that add to get negative 19?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Now, Miss Isbell don't like to have minuses in the middle when I can handle it, so I'm going to swap these orders.
0 equals 11x squared minus 22
X. But the X is in the middle. Okay.
3x
Plus 3X minus 6. So the first and the last term are copied from the first and the last term in the original, and you take the middle term and you break it into the 2 terms from the table.
You got to do the grouping thing.
Yeah, I'm going to do that grouping thing. Group and I group. I'm going to keep my 0 hanging out there. What is my GCF in my first group now? 11x, good. Parentheses, what times 11x makes 11x squared? Minus 2, good. Plus, what's my GCF in my next group? 3. Parentheses, what times 3 is 3x? Minus what times 3 is negative 6? 2. And we have the same thing in both parentheses.
And it's going to be x minus 2 equals 0.
Well, I'm writing this step first, okay? I copy down my x minus 2's because they're repeated, and then I take what's not in parentheses. Alright. And then I set them both equal to 0. X minus 2 equals 0. 3 equals 0. Going to add 2 on both sides. X equals 2. Subtract 3. 11x equals negative 3. Divide by 11. X equals negative 3/11. That's seriously the longest ones they got, is the ones where you have the leading term not 1 on the trinomial. So are there any questions on any of this?
No.
Solving by factoring.